My cheeks were burning, and it wasn't from the grill. I just spent 20 minutes navigating our packed company BBQ to bring my husband David the specific craft beer our biggest client drinks. He took the cold bottle, locked eyes with Chloe, our lead designer, and chuckled. Then he pushed it right back into my hand. No, honey, he said, loud enough for half the patio to hear. That's the client's brand. You stick to the budgets, I'll handle the relationships. Just make sure the hot dog buns don't run out, okay? He winked at her. I stood there, humiliated, clutching that stupid bottle. But that moment, that public slap in the face, wasn't the start of the story. It was just the moment I knew how it had to end. To understand how we reached that breaking point, we need to go back 2 months. 2 months ago, it wasn't our wedding anniversary, nothing romantic. It was May 15th, the 5-year anniversary of what I privately called the bailout. The day I cashed out my grandmother's entire stock portfolio to save Whitfield Construction from going under after one of David's visionary risks went belly up. I was at the office, hours after everyone else had gone home. The only sound was the hum of the server and the click, click, click of my mouse. I was chasing a rounding error in QuickBooks, a series of expenses that bled red ink across my spreadsheet. $5,000 here, $10,000 there, all coded to materials overages. It felt sloppy. It wasn't like David to be sloppy with the books. He just left that to me. I dug deeper into our company cloud server. Tucked inside the main project folder was one I'd never seen. Personal project. My first thought, was he planning a surprise? A vacation? Something to finally acknowledge the bailout anniversary? I clicked it. There was only one file, a PDF. It wasn't airline tickets. It was a fully executed lease agreement for a luxury condo in the new high-rise downtown. My eyes scanned the page, my blood turning to ice. I saw the rent $7,000 a month. I saw the start date 3 months ago. And then I saw the signature page, David R. Whitfield, and co-signed, Chloe Jensen, our lead designer, the woman he'd winked at. The betrayal wasn't just a hotel room. It was a line item. He wasn't just cheating on me. He was embezzling from me, using the very company I had saved to furnish a new life for someone else. My hands were perfectly steady. I saved a copy. And then I started a new spreadsheet. That new spreadsheet was my anchor. I stayed up until 3 a.m., my world reduced to glowing cells and black and white numbers. The lease was a fact. The affair was a fact. The embezzlement was a fact. But facts don't pay bills, and they don't win legal battles. For that, I needed more. I needed all of it. And I knew David. His arrogance was his greatest weakness, and my perceived fragility was his blind spot. He saw me as the cautious, anxious numbers girl, the one who worried while he dreamed big. I'd have to become the most fragile, emotional bookkeeper he'd ever seen. The next morning, I was in the kitchen at 6 a.m., just like always. I'd showered, put on makeup, a little extra concealer under the eyes to sell the sleepless night, and made the coffee. The smell of the dark roast, which I used to love, now just smelled like burnt earth, like the foundation of my life had been set on fire. David came down at 7:15, knotting a silk tie, the blue one I'd bought him. He kissed my temple. "Morning, babe." It took every ounce of my self-control not to flinch. His lips felt cold, like a stone. He sat at the island, opened his laptop, and grabbed the Wall Street Journal. Normal. Everything was disgustingly normal. I poured his coffee into his favorite mug, the one I'd gotten him from that work trip to Chicago, a trip I now realized Chloe had also been on. My hands weren't shaking. That was the strangest part. I felt hollowed out. Like a building after a fire, the facade is still standing, but inside, it's just ash and twisted steel. I was no longer a wife. I was an actress. And this was the most important role of my life. I sat across from him, clutching my own mug. I let my shoulders slump. I sighed, just loud enough for him to register it. He didn't look up. Something wrong. I brought my regular laptop to the island, the safe one, not the one in my office with my secret spreadsheet. I opened the company's QuickBooks file. David. I made my voice waver. I'd practiced this in the mirror. How to make my eyes look wide and haunted. How to let my breath catch. I was running the numbers last night. Again. And I'm really worried. He finally looked up, his eyes glancing at the screen with visible annoyance. He saw the expense reports I'd pulled up. "What now, Elena? I told you the first quarter numbers are always a little soft. It's fine." "No, it's these materials overages." I pointed to the screen, my finger tracing the lines of red. "They're huge. They're in the tens of thousands every week. They're eating our margins. And I can't. I just can't make them make sense." I looked at him. And this part wasn't acting. I let the tears well up, but they weren't tears for him. They were tears of pure, unadulterated rage. "David, I keep thinking about the bailout." His face tightened. "I keep thinking about what we went through 5 years ago," I whispered, letting my voice crack. "I'm so scared. I'm so scared of being back there, of losing it all again. What if I missed something? What if we're going under and you're just not telling me?" This, I knew, would work. Mentioning the bailout was my secret weapon. To me, it was the day I saved us. To him, it was the day he'd failed, the day he'd almost bankrupted us with his recklessness. He hated being reminded of it. It made him defensive, and it made him dismissive of me, his emotional, traumatized counterpart. He sighed, a big, theatrical gesture. He closed his laptop and reached across the granite island, patting my hand. The touch was condescending, and it was perfect. "Babe, honey, listen to me." His voice was that smooth, placating tone he used on clients, and I now realized, on me. This is exactly why I handle the big picture. You get too emotional about the money. You've been like this ever since the bailout. You're traumatized by it. You see a big number and you panic. I held my breath, looking at him through my tears. Yes, that's it. I'm just the traumatized, fragile wife. Keep going. Tell me more. I need you to trust me," he continued, getting up to pour more coffee, a picture of confident masculinity. "Those overages are they're part of a new client acquisition strategy. It's complicated. It's just good business. It's handled. Okay? You don't need to worry your pretty head about it." He smiled. That big, confident, charming smile that I used to think was just for me. He saw me as a domestic accessory, a high-functioning calculator who got the vapors when the numbers got too high. He had no idea I was the only thing holding the entire damn company together. He had no idea that while he was handling the big picture, I was the one who built the damn frame. "Now," he said, checking his watch, the Rolex I'd given him after the bailout. "I've got to run. Big meeting with Chloe and the design team on the new hotel project. Why don't you, take the day off? Go to the spa or something. Relax, please. For me, I can't have my numbers girl this stressed out." He was managing me. I was a problem to be handled, a box to be checked. "Keep Elena calm." He kissed my forehead. "Just stick to the budgets, babe. I'll handle the rest." And he walked out. I sat there for a full minute, not moving. The smile I'd been holding for him, the one that was all trembling lip and worried eyes, melted away. My face went cold. I looked at his half-empty coffee cup. I picked it up, walked to the sink, and poured it out, the dark liquid swirling down the drain. The spa. He wanted me to go to the spa. I went back to my office, locked the door, and opened my new spreadsheet. In a fresh cell, I typed in his exact words, "New client acquisition strategy." It was a lie. And it was exactly the thread I needed to start pulling, to unravel his whole goddamn world. That thread, new client acquisition strategy. It was such a flimsy, corporate-sounding lie, and he thought I'd just go to the spa. He thought a massage and some cucumber water would be enough to make the emotional numbers girl forget the red ink. I sat there in my home office, the one he so generously let me have, and I opened a different folder on my laptop. Not the company books, my personal brokerage account. The page loaded. Current holdings, $1,472.58. It was the ghost of a portfolio. The leftover scraps. Seeing that number, that pathetic little sum, was like a punch to the gut. It threw me right back to that night 5 years ago. The bailout. We weren't in this beautiful, custom-built house. We were in our old, cramped 2-bedroom apartment, the one with the rattling air conditioner and the neighbors who fought every Tuesday. It was 2 a.m. on a Wednesday. The air was thick with the smell of stale coffee and pure, unadulterated panic. David was a wreck. He was pacing the beige carpet, his hands pulling at his hair, his face pale and slick with sweat. "He's gone, Elena. Reynolds is gone," he kept saying, his voice cracking. Reynolds was the developer he'd staked our entire company on, a visionary, just like him. He filed for bankruptcy. He's in Mexico. The bank. They're calling the loan. Tomorrow. They're calling the loan at 9 a.m. We're done. It's over. We're going to lose. We're going to lose everything. I wasn't pacing. I was at our rickety little desk, the one we got at a garage sale. I was on my laptop. I had 3 browser windows open: our business bank account, which was $82,000 in the red, the bank's loan portal, and a PDF from our lawyer outlining just how screwed we were. I had been on the phone for 6 hours. I'd talked to the bank, begging for an extension. I'd talked to our lawyer, asking if we could declare our own bankruptcy. I'd looked at it from every angle, and there was only one way out. "It's not everything," I said, my voice quiet. David stopped pacing. "What? We don't have to lose everything." I opened a 4th browser tab, my brokerage account, the one my grandmother, Nana Rose, had set up for me when I was born. It was her legacy. She was a child of the Depression, and to her, financial independence for a woman wasn't a slogan, it was survival. "This is your nest egg, Elena," she'd told me, her hands papery and strong as she showed me the stock certificates. "This is your house, your freedom. You never, ever let a man be your only financial plan. You promise me." I had promised. And now I was watching the portfolio load. It was full of her. Solid, boring, safe blue-chip stocks: Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble. The stocks that had survived wars and recessions. My nest egg, my freedom, my house. It was worth, at that moment, $284,000. The bank needed $250,000 by 9 a.m. to stop the default. "Elena." "No," David whispered, coming up behind me. He knew what that account was. He knew what it meant to me. "No, I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking," I said. My voice was flat. I was already doing the math. "It's the only way, David. It's this, or we declare bankruptcy. We lose the business. We lose everything we've built." "We." I'd said we. I looked at his face, streaked with tears and shame. This was my husband, the man I had vowed to support, in good times and in bad. This was the bad time. This was the test. My grandmother's warning echoed in my head. Never let a man be your only financial plan. But this wasn't just a man. This was my husband. This was our life. My hand was on the mouse. I numb. I wasn't just selling stocks. I was selling my security. I was selling my grandmother's one, sacred rule. I was trading my safety net for his. I was jumping out of the airplane with him, and I was giving him my parachute. I started clicking. Sell, market order, all. IBM, gone. P&G, gone. Johnson & Johnson, gone. Coca-Cola, gone. With every click, a piece of my grandmother's legacy vanished. A piece of my independent future dissolved into cash. It took 10 minutes. 10 minutes to liquidate a lifetime of careful saving. The confirmation screen flashed. Transaction complete. I initiated the wire transfer to our business account. David collapsed onto the edge of the bed and just sobbed. He put his head in his hands. I sat there, staring at the screen, my own account now showing a balance of just a few $1,000s. I felt hollow. He came over and knelt beside my chair. He wrapped his arms around my waist and pressed his wet face into my side. "You saved me," he choked out. "Elena, you saved us. I swear to you, I will pay you back. I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you. Every single penny. I promise." I had believed him. I had stroked his hair and told him it was okay, that we were a team, that we'd rebuild. And we did. The company survived. It thrived. We got bigger clients. We built this beautiful house, and he never paid me back, not a dime. It became an unspoken rule. We never talked about the bailout. It was his shame, and I guess it was my sacrifice. Now, sitting in my office 5 years later, the spa comment felt like acid in my throat. He'd taken that sacrifice, that $250,000 of my grandmother's memory, and he'd used it as a foundation. And on that foundation, he was building a life with another woman. He was taking my money, the money that I saved, the company that I kept from dying, and he was funneling it into a luxury condo for his mistress. He hadn't just broken a promise. He had desecrated that night. He had taken my ultimate act of trust and used it as his personal slush fund. The fragile woman he saw, the emotional bookkeeper, she died that night 5 years ago. She died when I clicked confirm sale. The woman who was left, she was a hell of a lot colder. She was a hell of a lot smarter. And she was done being the silent partner. This wasn't about a broken heart. It was about a broken contract. It was about justice. I closed my personal brokerage account. I was done mourning my grandmother's stocks. It was time to get them back. With interest? Getting them back with interest meant I couldn't just be an angry wife. I had to be a predator. And predators don't cry. They hunt. The old Elena would have hired a private investigator. She would have wanted photos, texts, the sordid, tear-stained proof of a broken heart. The new Elena? I hired a forensic accountant. His name was Arthur Harrison. He didn't work in a flashy downtown high-rise. His office was in a boring, suburban office park, the kind with beige carpets and bad art. He was a small, quiet man who wore the same gray cardigan in every one of our meetings. He looked like a bird, but he had the reputation of a pit bull. He didn't care about the why of the affair. He only cared about the how. How was it paid for? "Mr. Harrison," I said in our first meeting, sliding the condo lease across his desk, "my husband has a new client acquisition strategy. I'd like to know exactly how much this new client is costing my company." He just nodded, put on his glasses, and said, "I'll need access, full access, ledgers, bank statements, payroll, everything, back 3 years. "That," I said, "is where I come in." My fragile performance became my full-time job. I was the most devoted, anxious, supportive wife you've ever seen. I did go to the spa, David suggested. I sat in a fluffy white robe in a quiet, dimly lit room, and with my phone on Do Not Disturb. I remotely accessed our company servers and created a secure, invisible portal for Arthur to begin his work. At home, I was a ghost in my own house. I'd wait until David was asleep, that deep, self-satisfied sleep of a man who thinks he's getting away with it all. Then, I'd slip out of bed, my feet silent on the hardwood floors, and go to my office. This was my territory. He handled the handshakes, I handled the architecture. The real architecture, the flow of money that kept the lights on. I wasn't just downloading, I was auditing. My mind had never been clearer. The rage had burned away the fog of my grief and left behind a cold, sharp, diamond-hard clarity. I cross-referenced every invoice from our suppliers for the new hotel project. I pulled payroll records. I looked at gas card charges for the company trucks. I was no longer a wife. I was an auditor, and my husband was a hostile client. Click. Invoice, 1,000 square feet of high-grade Italian marble. Billed to hotel project. Click. Shipping manifest, delivered to luxury condo, unit 2801. My, Chloe, you have expensive taste. Click. Payroll, 2 of our best carpenters, assigned to hotel project. Click. GPS logs from their company truck, parked at the luxury condo for 3 solid weeks. It was all there. A systematic, arrogant theft. He wasn't just hiding it, he was bragging about it in the numbers, so sure his emotional numbers girl would never have the guts to look. I compiled everything. Years of ledgers, bank statements, every fraudulent invoice, every falsified shipping manifest, the condo lease, the whole ugly, beautiful case. I downloaded it all onto a single encrypted high-capacity thumb drive, the kind you buy at Best Buy. The next morning, I made pancakes. David sat at the counter, reading the paper, oblivious. I smiled at him, all domestic and sweet. "More coffee, honey." In the pocket of my robe, the thumb drive felt heavy, like a small, dense stone. While he was in the shower, I walked into our pantry. It was a monument to the life he thought we had. Imported pastas, expensive olive oils, quinoa, organic everything. And on the bottom shelf, a giant, value-sized box of Costco sandwich bags, a Kirkland signature box, the most mundane, invisible, wifey thing in the whole house. I opened the box, shoved the thumb drive deep inside, under hundreds of flimsy plastic bags, and put it back on the shelf. Perfect camouflage. The evidence of my husband's entire betrayal hidden in plain sight, right next to the snack bags for our non-existent children. I fed the data to Arthur Harrison in small, secure drops. Weeks went by. May bled into June. The fragile wife act was wearing thin, but I held on. Then, Arthur called. Not on my regular phone, but on the burner I'd bought with cash. I picked it up in my car, parked in a Trader Joe's parking lot. "Elena," he said. "No small talk. Arthur never used small talk. Are you sitting down?" "I am." The condo was sloppy. That was the appetizer. But the materials overage for the new hotel build, that's the main course. My stomach tightened. "What did you find?" "It's not just a few carpenters and some stolen marble, Elena. He's moving serious assets. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in lumber, concrete, high-end fixtures, and crew labor. It's a massive diversion. But here's the kicker." I waited. "It's not going to the condo." "Where is it going?" "He's been using company funds and labor for a much bigger personal project. Another build. A custom home. He's hiding it all as a materials overage on the new hotel project." I ran the property records for the delivery address. "And he doesn't own it, Elena. I'm looking at the permit. The developer on record is a man named Ben Reed." Ben Reed. The name hit me like a physical blow. Ben Reed. The charismatic, family values, city councilman. The one who was suddenly engaged. The one who was engaged to Chloe. I sat there in the Trader Joe's parking lot for a long time. The phone felt hot in my hand. A bag of organic avocados was tipping over in the back seat. Ben Reed. The world went very, very quiet. It wasn't just a love triangle, it was a conspiracy. I didn't go home. I didn't go to the office. I put Arthur's address into my GPS. It took me 20 minutes, winding up into the hills, into a new, ultra-exclusive development, the kind of place where every house is a glass and steel monument to making it. I parked 2 streets down and walked. The air was thinner up here, and the only sound was the whir of a distant table saw. Then I saw it. It was more than a house. It was a statement. A sprawling, 3-story modern build, all sharp angles and breathtaking canyon views. And parked right out front, next to a cement mixer, was a bright white Ford F-250. With the Whitfield Construction logo on the door. My logo. My crew. I saw Mike, our foreman. A man I'd personally hired. A man who had come to my house for a Christmas party. He was laughing with a carpenter, both of them unloading pallets of the exact premium-grade cedar siding that was supposed to be going to the hotel project. I saw the stacks of Italian marble I'd seen on the invoices. The overages. My overages were being installed as the flooring for Chloe Jensen's new dream home. I didn't get out of the car. I just watched. I watched my employees, on my clock, using my materials, to build a monument to my husband's stupidity and his mistress's ambition. He wasn't just cheating on me, he was liquidating me. I drove away. My hands were so tight on the steering wheel my knuckles were white. I didn't go home. I couldn't risk my home IP address. I went to the downtown public library, a place I hadn't been in years. I sat at a dusty public terminal that smelled like disinfectant, surrounded by the quiet shuffles of people looking for jobs or a warm place to sit. I logged into the city's public records portal. Building and safety permits. I typed in the address, and there it was, in crisp, bureaucratic, black and white. Permit applicant, Benjamin Reed. Architect, N.A. Interior designer of record, Chloe Jensen. I sat back. The fluorescent lights of the library hummed. I opened a new tab. Chloe's Instagram, the one she kept public for her design brand. I'd been checking it every day. I scrolled down, past the photos of minimalist white rooms and expensive light fixtures. And there it was. A post from 2 weeks ago. A picture of her hand, flashing a massive, cushion-cut diamond ring, held up against a backdrop of the city skyline. The caption read, "I said yes to my rock, my partner in crime, and the man who makes everyday magic. Ben Reed, I can't wait to build our life together. Number engaged, number future Mrs. Reed, number power couple." My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a gasp of pain, it was a gasp of clarity, like a camera lens snapping into perfect, brutal focus. The whole rotten, brilliant scam laid itself bare. Chloe, our star designer, starts sleeping with my husband, David, the big picture visionary, the one who still feels the sting of the bailout. She makes him feel powerful, smart, a provider. Then, Chloe, the ambitious designer, gets engaged to Ben Reed, the charismatic, up-and-coming city councilman, the one with the power to fast-track permits and approve land use variances. And then, the masterpiece. She gets David to steal from our company, my company, the one I saved with my grandmother's inheritance, to provide all the materials and labor for her new house. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in overages. David, blinded by ego and whatever else, thinks he's the one winning. He's the visionary, building a secret love nest for his mistress. He thinks he's playing me. Meanwhile, she gets her fiancé, the city councilman, to use his political muscle to get the land deal and fast-track the permits. Ben Reed, blinded by his ego, thinks he's the savvy developer, getting a sweetheart deal from his brilliant fiancé who has connections in the construction world. They're both idiots. And Chloe? Chloe stands in the middle, smiling, with a diamond ring on her finger. She's building a multi-million-dollar house for free, using my husband's resources and her fiancé's power. She's playing them both like cheap violins. It wasn't just an affair. It was fraud. It was criminal conspiracy. I looked at the library's beige plastic keyboard. I thought about the $250,000 I'd poured into that company, my grandmother's legacy. It wasn't just being spent on a condo anymore. It was being laundered into cedar siding and Italian marble and custom cabinetry. I logged off the computer. I walked out into the afternoon sun, and for the first time in months, I wasn't sad. I wasn't fragile. I was furious, and I finally had a plan. This was no longer a divorce. This was a demolition. A demolition needs a plan. It needs the structure to be cleared, the charges to be set. My next 2 weeks were spent doing just that. I met with my new lawyer, a woman named Jessica who specialized in corporate litigation, not conscious uncoupling. I paid her retainer from a private account David didn't know existed, a small just-in-case fund Nana Rose had helped me set up years ago. Never let them see the whole bank book, honey. Her voice echoed in my head. I met with Arthur, the accountant, and we built the timeline. The theft, the conspiracy, the web of lies. It was all there, in a neat 100-page report. I was building my demolition packet. All I needed was the right time, the right trigger. David, being David, handed it to me on a silver platter. It was the last week of June. The air was getting thick and soupy, and the buzz around the office was all about the annual company 4th of July BBQ. This was our big event, not a stuffy Christmas party. A real, all-American, backyard blowout. We'd host it at our house, the house I saved. We'd invite all the crews, the subcontractors, the clients, and their families. It was David's favorite day of the year. It was his chance to play king of the castle. The benevolent, self-made man, flipping burgers for his loyal subjects. This year, I was just trying to figure out an excuse, a migraine, food poisoning, to not have to stand there and smile for 8 hours. He came home on a Tuesday night. I heard his keys hit the granite counter with a thwack that was louder than usual. He was practically vibrating with energy. I was in the kitchen, pretending to finalize the Costco order for the party. The irony of me ordering 400 Kirkland signature buns while the proof of his betrayal sat in a Kirkland box in the pantry. It was almost too much. "Elena," he boomed. He came up behind me, put his hands on my shoulders, and spun me around. "You are looking at the man who just locked in the new city center project." That's great, David," I said. I pulled my fragile face back on, the one that was slightly overwhelmed but supportive. "That's amazing." "Amazing? It's transformative," he said, pouring himself a huge glass of bourbon. "This is the one, babe. The one that takes us to the next level. We're not just Whitfield Construction anymore. We're the firm." He was pacing, gesturing with his glass. "And I have to thank Chloe. Her design pitches were incredible. She gets it. She gets the vision." I just nodded. My teeth clenched so hard I was surprised they didn't crack. That's her job, right?" He laughed. A short, sharp, dismissive sound. No, she's more than that. She's a partner in this. She's got connections I never dreamed of. Which brings me to the barbecue. My stomach turned into a cold, hard knot. "What about it?" "I had a stroke of genius today," he said, taking a long sip of his bourbon. "I was in the meeting with Chloe and her new fiancé, Ben Reed." I kept my face perfectly, painfully blank. "The councilman." "Right. I've seen his signs all over town. He's not just a councilman, Elena. He's the guy. He's the one who greenlights the city center project. He's the future, and he's just a great guy. We really hit it off. So, he said, puffing his chest out, I invited them to the 4th of July party, both of them. I let the silence hang. I let my eyes go wide. I let my mouth drop open, just a little. I let him see the shocked, fragile wife. He immediately went on the defensive, his voice shifting from visionary to condescending manager. Now, Elena, don't do that. Don't get weird. Weird, I whispered. David, you invited Chloe to our home for the family barbecue. Oh, come on, he scoffed, waving his hand. Don't be dramatic. It's not like that. This isn't high school. This is business. Business, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. Yes, business, he said, his voice rising. Ben Reed is a huge asset for us, having him at the party, making him feel like part of the Whitfield family. This is how deals get done, Elena. It's just good business, babe. He walked over and took my shoulders again. His grip was a little too tight. He was looking at me, hard. That look that wasn't loving, it was appraising. Like a farmer checking a lame horse to see if it had one more race in it. I need you to be charming, he said, his voice low and serious. I need you to be the wife I know you are. Gracious, smart, the perfect hostess. I need you to, play nice. Play nice. He was ordering me to host my own replacement, to smile at the woman he was building a house for with my grandmother's money, to entertain the man she was conning, all to further his vision. He saw my hesitation. His eyes hardened. Elena, I'm not asking. This is important. This is for the company, the one you get so emotional about. This is the big picture. Can you handle that? Or are you going to get fragile on me? He was weaponizing my own performance against me. The audacity of it was breathtaking. I looked at his self-satisfied face. The man who thought he was a king, a visionary, a master of the universe. The man who thought I was just a fragile little bookkeeper, good for budgets and hot dog buns. This wasn't a demolition. This was a controlled implosion, and he had just handed me the detonator. I took a slow, shaky breath. I manufactured a tear in the corner of my eye. No, I whispered. No, you're right. I can do that. If it's for the company. Of course. His face instantly relaxed. He smiled. He'd handled me again. That's my girl, he said, patting my cheek. See? It's just good business. He finished his bourbon, put the glass in the sink, didn't even rinse it, and went upstairs to take a call. I stood alone in the kitchen. The trap wasn't his, it was mine. He wanted a family BBQ. He wanted his asset there. He wanted his vision on full display. Oh, he was going to get it. I pulled out my burner phone. It was time to make one more invitation. My invitation list was short. It had one name on it, Councilman Ben Reed. But how do you invite a high-profile politician to his own public execution? I sat in my car, that burner phone in my hand. A call was too risky. He wouldn't answer an unknown number. An email? He's a public figure. His whole life is a firewall. Emails get filtered by staffers. Anonymous tips get deleted by 2 5-year-old aides who think they're in the West Wing. If I sent a simple email, he'd dismiss it as a crank. Even worse, he'd probably ask Chloe about it. Hey babe, got the weirdest email today. And she'd spin some story. She'd laugh it off. She'd call me a crazy, jealous ex-employee or a disgruntled subcontractor. She was a professional manipulator. She'd have him wrapped around her finger again in 5 minutes. No. The message had to be different. It had to bypass the firewall. It had to land directly in his hand. It had to be as serious, as physical, and as untraceable as a piece of evidence. It couldn't just be an accusation. It had to be a puzzle that only he could solve. The next morning, I drove to a CVS 30 miles away, in a different county. I walked to the back, past the seasonal aisle with all the flags and pool noodles, and bought the cheapest prepaid phone they had. A $20 burner. I paid in cash. Then I drove to a FedEx office store, not a franchise, but a main shipping hub. I bought a small, sturdy box and a FedEx Priority overnight envelope. I sat in my car in the corner of the parking lot. I activated the burner phone. I didn't type a text message. I typed a note. I made it cold, professional, and full of facts. This wasn't a jealous wife. This was a whistleblower. I typed, "Councilman Reed, you don't know me, but we are both being played. Your fiancée, Chloe Jensen, is using my husband's company, Whitfield Construction, to build your new house for free. He thinks he's funding their future. You think she's a brilliant designer who secured a sweetheart deal? You're both wrong. She's embezzling from both of you. Don't believe me. Believe the numbers. I'm sending you a single invoice number from our hotel project. Ask your bank for the corresponding invoice from your build. Compare the line items for cedar siding and Italian marble. It's the same pot of money. She's having my company buy it, and your company pay her for it. She is building a multi-million-dollar house for free, and she's using you to do it." I stopped. That was the hook. Now, the invitation. "My husband is hosting a company BBQ on the 4th of July. You're the guest of honor. Be at this address at 2 p.m. I typed in my home address. I will have the rest of the evidence for you. The ledgers, the shipping manifests, everything. Come alone, or don't, and let her finish the job." I saved the note as the phone's wallpaper, the only thing you'd see when you turned it on. Then I powered it down, placed it in the small box, and sealed it. I addressed the FedEx envelope to his private office at City Hall. Not his public one, his private one, the one I'd found in the city directories. I paid the $40 for overnight shipping in cash. I didn't put a return address. I slid the envelope across the counter to the clerk, who didn't even look up. It vanished into a blue and orange bin. It was done. I had just sent a live grenade to a man I'd never met. I was betting my entire future on one thing: that Ben Reed's political ambition was even bigger than his ego, that his fear of a public scandal would be greater than his love for his fiancée. I drove home. I had 1 week until the party. I walked into the house. It was quiet. I went into the pantry, past the snack bags and the quinoa. I pulled out my laptop. It was time to design the presentation for the barbecue. It was time to finalize my own set of books, and course, I still had to go to Costco and buy 400 hot dog buns. And so, 1 week later, it was the 4th of July. Our backyard was a perfect picture of the American dream. The smell of charcoal and sunscreen hung in the air. A cheesy patriotic playlist was pumping from the patio speakers. Kids were screaming and throwing water balloons in the grass. And David was in his element, holding court at the massive stainless steel grill, a beer in one hand, tongs in the other, playing the part of the generous self-made king. I was the perfect hostess. I smiled. I laughed. I complimented Susan from accounting on her potato salad. I made sure the crews, the guys who actually sweat for this company, got the first round of burgers. I was a vision of domestic competence. But inside, I was a machine. I was counting heads. I was checking my watch. At 1:45 p.m., Chloe arrived. She was wearing a white sundress that was probably worth more than my first car. She walked right up to David at the grill, gave him a hug that was a solid 5 seconds too long, and kissed his cheek, all while her fiancé was 10 feet behind her, parking the car. Then at 1:55 p.m., just as I'd planned, Councilman Ben Reed walked through the side gate. He was not in a party mood. He wasn't smiling. He wore sunglasses, and his eyes were scanning the crowd like a hawk looking for a threat. He saw me, and our eyes met for just 1 second. He knew. The grenade had gone off. He was just here to see the damage. He gave me a curt, tight-lipped nod. Chloe, busy laughing at something David said, didn't even notice him arrive. I let it play out for another 30 minutes. I circulated. I smiled. I was fragile, gracious Elena. I was working the crowd, and I saw our biggest client, Mr. Henderson, looking for another drink. "I'll get that for you, Jim," I said. I navigated the crowd, grabbed the specific craft beer he drinks, the expensive one from the icy cooler. I was walking it back to him when David stepped right in my path, a big, stupid grin on his face. He intercepted me, taking the cold bottle from my hand. He looked at Chloe, who was standing right next to him, and he chuckled. Then, in front of the client, in front of my crews, in front of his mistress, he pushed the bottle right back into my hand. "No, no, honey," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "That's the client's brand. You stick to the budgets. I'll handle the relationships. Just make sure the hot dog buns don't run out, okay?" He winked. "Not at me. At Chloe." The music was loud. The kids were shrieking. But in my head, everything went dead silent. The hot dog buns. The words just hung there. He had dismissed me. He had reduced me from his partner, the woman who had saved his entire company, to the catering staff. He had done it in public, as the ultimate power move, to impress the woman he was stealing from me for. That was it. The final, brittle crack in the foundation. I didn't cry. I didn't run. I just smiled. A tight, cold smile he'd never seen before. "You're absolutely right, David," I said, my voice clear and bright. "I should stick to the budgets." I set the beer down. And I walked straight to the patio. I walked up to the DJ table, where our summer intern was managing the playlist. I picked up the microphone. Tap, tap, tap. A high-pitched screech of feedback cut through the air. The music stopped. The entire party, 60 people, froze. Every eye turned to me. David and Chloe looked annoyed, like I'd interrupted their punchline. "Hi, everyone," I said, my voice booming over the speakers. "Happy 4th. Sorry to interrupt. For those who don't know me, I'm Elena Whitfield." I paused. David was starting to look confused. "I'm David's wife, and, as of our LLC operating agreement, the 51% managing partner of Whitfield Construction." You could have heard a pin drop on the grass. I saw Mike, our foreman, stop with a burger halfway to his mouth. The client's smiles froze. "David just reminded me to stick to the budgets," I continued, my voice calm and pleasant, like I was giving a quarterly report. "And he's so right. Numbers are my thing." So, in the spirit of good business, I prepared a small audio version of our mid-year audit, just the highlights, for our guests and for our mystery investors. I saw Councilman Reed take his sunglasses off. David's face had gone pale. "Elena, what the hell are you doing? Turn that off." "It's just good business, babe," I said, repeating his own words back to him. I unhooked the intern's playlist phone from the speaker. I took out my own phone, the burner, the one from the library, the one that held nothing but a single 3-minute audio file. I plugged it into the aux cord, and I hit play. My own voice, calm and clear, sliced through the party chatter. It wasn't angry. It wasn't fragile. It was the voice I used for corporate readouts, the one that was level, professional, and absolutely merciless. "Mid-year audit highlight. Item 1, my voice announced over the speakers. A non-budgeted recurring monthly expense of $7,000, categorized as client acquisition, for a luxury condo leased to a non-client, Miss Chloe Jensen." Chloe's head snapped toward David, her face instantly draining of all color. "Item 2, my voice continued, relentlessly pleasant. Materials overages totaling $212,000, billed to the downtown hotel project. Specifically, 1,000 square feet of Italian Calicotta marble, 5,000 board feet of premium cedar siding, and 1 complete high-end kitchen appliance package." David was moving, shoving past a frozen-still client. "Elena, stop this. What the hell is this? Turn it off." He was lunging for the speaker, fumbling with the wires. All diverted from the hotel build site. My voice went on, and delivered to an unbudgeted private residence at 14 Canyon Ridge Drive. I saw Councilman Ben Reed, who had been standing like a statue, slowly turn his head. He looked at Chloe. He knew that address. It was his house. Item 3, labor. A 3-man carpentry crew, including foreman Mike Russo, assigned and billed to the hotel project for 3 consecutive weeks, while GPS logs confirmed their company vehicle was exclusively at 14 Canyon Ridge Drive. Mike, standing by the grill, just stared at me. His face was a mask of disbelief, then a slow, dawning comprehension. He knew I'd caught them. David finally ripped the aux cord from my phone. The sound cut off, leaving a silence so heavy it was suffocating. The only noise was a single water balloon splatting on the pavement and a child's laugh that quickly died. Every eye was on us. The clients, the crews, the families. Chloe made a move toward her fiancé. "Ben, baby, this is insane. This is crazy. She's lying." Ben Reed didn't even look at her. He just held up a hand, a universal stop talking gesture. His eyes locked on me. He ignored David completely and walked straight toward me, his face grim. He wasn't a guest. He was a man assessing a blast radius. David, his face purple with rage, turned on me. You ruined me," he screamed, his voice cracking. "You ruined everything." I stood my ground. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. I just looked at him, the man I'd saved, the man I'd propped up for years. "No, David," I said, my voice cutting through the silence. "You did." I held up a simple, manila legal folder I'd been holding. I'd grabbed it from the patio table right before I picked up the mic. I pushed it into his chest. He looked down, fumbling to open it. "That," I said, "is an invocation of the key person clause in our partnership agreement." His head snapped up, his eyes were wide with a new, dawning horror. "You remember that clause, don't you?" I asked. "The one my lawyer insisted we add right after the bailout. The one that protects the company, my 51% share of the company, in the event of gross negligence, malfeasance, or criminal fraud by either managing partner." He was shaking his head, speechless. "I'm legally dissolving Whitfield Construction," I stated, not as an accusation, but as a fact. "Effective 9 a.m. this morning. I'm starting my own firm." You can't," he stammered. "The clients, the crews, they're coming with me," I finished. "I notified them all this morning. The clients have been advised of the fraud. The crews were given a choice. They chose to follow the managing partner who actually signs their paychecks." I looked past David, past the wreckage of his face, and I met Mike the foreman's eyes across the lawn. He was watching me, no longer confused, but with a look of hard, professional respect. He gave me one sharp nod. It was done. The king was dead, and the castle was mine. But a captured castle is just a building. It's the silence after the battle that tells you if you've won. In that deafening quiet, with my voice no longer booming from the speakers, the party guests looked like a freeze frame. No one was eating, no one was talking. They were all just staring. Not at David, the crumpled, screaming king. Not at Chloe, whose face was a mask of chalky, reptilian panic. They were all staring at me. The fragile wife, the emotional bookkeeper, the one who was supposed to be checking on the hot dog buns. David was still clutching the manila folder. His knuckles were white. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He was a visionary with no vision. A big picture guy who had just been reduced to a single, fraudulent line item. Chloe was the first to move. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just put her sunglasses on, her hand visibly shaking. She looked at David, not with pity, but with a look of pure, unadulterated contempt. The look of a failed co-conspirator. Then she turned and looked at Ben Reed. "Ben," she said, her voice trying to be seductive, trying to be anything but what it was. "Ben, baby, let's go. We can talk about this. This is slander." Ben Reed hadn't moved. He looked at her, his face so cold he could have put out the grill. He just said one word, "lawyer." He didn't mean for her. He meant get one. Then he turned, and with a look of profound political regret, he looked at me. He gave me a single, stiff nod. It wasn't forgiveness. It was acknowledgement. Checkmate. And then he was gone, walking briskly out the side gate, his phone already to his ear. Chloe just stood there, abandoned by both her meal tickets. She turned and walked away, her high-end sandals sinking into the soft grass. David was last. He finally looked up at me. His eyes were dead. The rage was gone, replaced by something hollow and terrifying. He dropped the folder onto the grass, turned without a word, and walked into the house, my house. I heard the front door slam, the sound echoing across the patio. The silence that followed was different. It was awkward. Mr. Henderson, our biggest client, cleared his throat. He walked over to me, his face unreadable. "Elena," he said, his voice quiet. "I believe we have a meeting scheduled for Monday. With David." "You have a meeting with me, Jim," I said, my voice steady. "I'll be at the office at 9 a.m. with my new letterhead." He nodded, a small, grim smile playing on his lips. 9 a.m. it is. He was a businessman. He didn't care about the drama. He just cared about who was in charge. And David had just been proven, very publicly, to be a liability. One by one, the party evaporated. The clients left first, giving me polite, careful nods. Then the crews. Mike, the foreman, was one of the last. He came up to me, his hat in his hands. "Mrs. Whitfield, Elena," he said, fumbling. I ran the crew. He just told me where to go. I know, Mike." I cut him off. "It wasn't your call. The new payroll company is called Summit Design and Build. You'll get your first check on Friday, if you want it." He looked relieved. "Yes, ma'am. We'll be at the hotel site, 7 a.m. Monday." He nodded. "Boss." And he left. Finally, I was alone. Just me, the tiki torches, and a sea of half-eaten potato salad, red Solo cups, and cooling burgers. I walked over to the table and picked up one of the hot dog buns David had been so concerned about. I looked at it. This stupid piece of bread. This was what he thought I was worth. I crushed it in my fist and threw it in the trash. The performance was over. I was so tired. I wasn't happy. I wasn't sad. I was just done. I felt the terrible, aching relief of a broken bone finally being set. The pain was excruciating, but at least it was finally in the right place. The story, of course, exploded. But it wasn't the affair that made the news. This wasn't a gossip column. This was the city column. A few days later, I was in a sterile, temporary office I'd leased, a small glass box with no personality. The TV in the lobby was on, and Ben Reed's face was on every channel. He was at a podium in front of City Hall, a phalanx of microphones in his face. He looked awful. He hadn't slept, but he was wearing a suit, and he was standing straight. "I called this press conference today," he said, his voice hoarse but firm, "to announce that I am resigning my position on the city council, effective immediately." Reporters shouted questions. He held up a hand. "I will not be taking questions. I am here to make a statement. I recently entered into a development project for a personal residence. I failed, in my capacity as a public servant, to perform the necessary due diligence on that project. I was blinded by a personal relationship, and in doing so, I allowed a gross conflict of interest to take place. There are no excuses." I watched him, my coffee halfway to my mouth. He was falling on his sword. "A formal investigation is being launched into a local company, Whitfield Construction, for widespread fraud and embezzlement, fraud that I was a victim of, but also one that my inattention allowed to continue." He took a deep breath. "But I also want to take this moment to thank the brave whistleblower who brought this fraud to light. This individual acted with integrity and courage at great personal cost to expose this. He didn't name me. He never would. He was a politician to the end, but in that moment, he was something more. He was accountable. He was the only one of the three who stood up and owned his part. He had lost his career, but he was saving his name. He was doing the one thing David and Chloe were incapable of, taking responsibility. The lesson was right there on the screen. He was redeeming himself by accepting the consequences. Chloe wasn't so lucky. My lawyer, Jessica, called me an hour later. Chloe was facing state charges for fraud and embezzlement. The state licensing board for interior designers had permanently revoked her credentials. That beautiful glass house on the hill? It was a half-built crime scene, tangled in so many liens and lawsuits it would be bulldozed by Christmas. And David? "He's fighting, of course," Jessica said over the phone. "His lawyer is trying to argue that the key person clause is invalid. He's claiming your $250,000 bailout was a personal gift, not a capital investment." I laughed. A short, bitter sound. "It wasn't a gift, it was the foundation." "Don't worry," Jessica said. "Arthur's report is so clean, it's not just a smoking gun, it's a tactical nuke. They know they'll lose. So, they're offering a deal." I waited. "David will sign the dissolution. He'll walk away. He'll give up any and all claim to the new company, the clients, the equipment. In exchange, you don't press criminal charges for the embezzlement. And the $250,000, I said. It wasn't a question. "And," Jessica said, and I could hear her smile, "he repays the full $250,000, plus interest, transferred directly from his personal retirement account to yours. He was buying his freedom with the last of his money." I didn't hesitate. "Take it. I don't want him in jail. I just want what's mine." It wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about restitution. It was about making my grandmother's legacy whole. He could keep his shattered vision. I was getting my foundation back. The check from David cleared 2 days later. That same day, the wire transfer for my grandmother's $250,000, plus interest, hit my account. There was no parade, no confetti. I just looked at the number on the screen. It wasn't a victory. It was just closing a ledger. The end of one company's toxic books and the beginning of another's. My foundation was back. Now it was time to build on it. 6 months later. The air doesn't smell like burnt coffee and betrayal anymore. It smells like fresh-cut pine, sawdust, and the sharp, clean scent of concrete curing in the January cold. I'm standing on the second-floor joists of a new commercial build, blueprints in one hand, a steaming styrofoam cup of coffee in the other. My boots are caked in mud, and the hard hat I'm wearing keeps slipping. It's not glamorous. It's real. The sound of nail guns is like music. Below me, my crew, a dozen guys in hoodies and tool belts, are framing out the ground floor. They're my crew because they chose to be. They followed the partner who knew their names, who ran the numbers right, and who never, ever missed payroll. The company isn't Whitfield anything, it's Summit Design and Build. I chose the name because a summit is the peak, the top, the place you get to after a hard climb, and it's what you stand on to see the path ahead. I hear heavy boots on the plywood stairs behind me. It's Mike, my foreman. He's holding a coffee pot. "Boss," he says. He calls me boss. Not Elena, not Mrs. Whitfield, just boss. And from a guy like Mike, that word is a badge of honor. "You're running low," he says, topping off my cup. "Figured you'd be up here." "Thanks, Mike. How's the west wall looking?" "Squared up and solid," he says. "Oh, and that new intern of yours? The one from the city college? She just got back from the zoning board." I raise an eyebrow. "And?" Mike grins. "A rare thing. She said the chief inspector told her to tell you. It's the cleanest set of paperwork he's seen in 20 years. I let that sink in. Clean paperwork, no materials overages, no client acquisition strategies, no fuzzy math, just the truth. On paper, built in wood and steel. I sip the coffee. It's terrible, sludgy, and tastes like victory. "That's because we measure twice and cut once, Mike," I say. "Amen to that, boss." He nods and heads back down into the symphony of hammers. I stand there for a minute, looking out over the build site. David's company, Whitfield Construction, was built on his vision and my sacrifice. He was the big picture guy, all charisma and handshakes, but his foundation was rotten. It was built on lies he told clients, lies he told me, and lies he told himself. My company, Summit, is built on my spreadsheets. It's built on my grandmother's legacy. That $250,000 wasn't just getting even. It was seed money. It was the capital I used to buy my own equipment, secure my own bonding, and build my own, better, and far more honest empire. I didn't just get Nana Rose's money back. I finally used it, just like she'd always wanted, as the foundation for my own freedom. I look down at the blueprints in my hand. They're not just for a building. They're my plans, drawn by me, financed by me, executed by me. David always said I just stuck to the budgets. He had no idea. The budget, the spreadsheet, the numbers, they aren't the prison. They're the blueprints for reality. And I'm just getting started. I'm just getting started. David was right about one thing. He was the face of the company. He was the big picture guy. But he forgot that I was the one who drew the blueprints. I was the one who laid the foundation, and I was the one who held the keys. He just lived there. In the end, you have to build your own house. So let me ask you, if you discover the foundation of your life is a lie, do you try to patch it up? Or do you tear it down and build something stronger, on your own terms? Do you think I was right to take the entire company? Or did I go too far? Let me know what you would have done in the comments below. And if you've ever had to start over from scratch, I want to hear your story. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength when you've been underestimated.